Hello all. This is a follow-up on a previous video because I got some comments on the previous video about where we talked about hyperlinking to a page from a report in Business Central, where the common question is that it works great on SaaS, but it doesn't work on prem. So we'll talk about that. Hello, this is Saurav Dhani, and in this video we'll talk about what we discussed in the last video, uh, or a few videos ago, over how to do a hyperlink to a page from report in Business Central, but on-prem. So let's understand what the problem was. And maybe it's a quick video. So I have already cloned the repo. This is our repo, which is available on GitHub. This have all the uh, crazy demos that we have talked about. Not much crazy, but simple examples maybe. So we're talking about this report, which you have already built. If you haven't watched the previous video, look out for a tag somewhere here on up of your screen where you can go and read about how we build this report and all. So we built this report. I just updated my launch.json. Now this is pointing to on-prem, my local environment, going to BC 2110, and we'll try to publish this in this environment and see what the problem is. Without doing any changes, I'll just go ahead and start publishing this, and this should get published, so that we understand what the problem is, and then we'll talk about how to solve it. So this got published here, and it should run the report automatically because if you look at it, I've said that the startup object type is a report, and the report that I would like to run when I publish this is 50,001, which is the report that is in question. Okay, going back to our Business Central. When I try to preview this, and let me zoom this in, we have added hyperlink to this field and this field. This hyperlink goes to item ledger entry, and this item goes to hyperlink should go to item number. When I hover over this, you should see somewhere here a hyperlink that's being generated, which says localhost 8080 PC210 report 50,001 and tenant default and nothing else, which typically means I'm actually not able to generate a hyperlink uh, on premise so that it targets to that particular page. Let's have a quick look here. It says the same thing. When I click on these hyperlink, this will not work because the hyperlink that's generated is incorrect. Okay, so let's understand where the problem is and how you solve it on-prem. So in SaaS, the settings of service tier are done automatically by Microsoft. In on-prem, you have to set it manually. So let's quickly go into the folder where we have our settings so that we can see that. Okay, Business Central, RKS 2110, service, and then inside the service folder, there's always a file called custom settings.json. Yeah, this is a file which kind of stores all the service related configuration which we have talked about in another video. And you can always open it with a notepad just to have a look on it. So this file have certain details which helps the get URL function. How you find it? Because it's a long file, you can just directly search for get URL. What is the get URL? That's a function that we have utilized in our report to generate the URL or hyperlink. So when you search for it, you get first this. Is there anything else? I doubt. That's it. So what does this say? It says this is a comment to this one. It says this is used in order to define URL when the get URL method is called with the client type set to default. Now, if you remember, we were trying to set it to default, which is we have used the client type as default. Now, when the client type in the get URL method is defined as default, the system to generate URL refers to this property called default client. Now, surprisingly, even in Business Central, the latest version of Business Central, it is set to be Windows, which is incorrect because there is no client of type Windows available in Business Central right now. Then it says set to default. the value must be one of the following: Windows, web, SOAP, or data. So now there are two ways to solve it. One, if you want, you can change it here. Instead of saying default, you can say it web, and that will correct your URL. If you don't want to make changes to your extension that you have already deployed, come back here and you need to change it to web. But you can't change it on a text file because when you try to save it, it'll ask you that you can't save it, more or less, because of admin rights and all. So if you have watched the previous videos where we talked about the service configuration, because there is no administration panel available with the latest version, we switch to PowerShell ISE. The first thing what we do is we do a import module, and we import the module for the version that we are targeting this. So let's run the module. We have it. Now you can get the server, get server. Oh, it says nav server. I don't know why, but okay, get nav server configuration to get a setting. So if you want, we can say BC210. I would like to see the setting for key default client. What that'll show me? That'll show me Windows. Now to set this, and let me zoom this in if I can somehow. Okay, I'll change this get to set nav server configuration. In the set nav server configuration, I can actually say that the key name that I would like to set is this, which is the default client. The server instance where I would like to change this is BC210, and then I would like to change the value to be web. Okay, let's run it. As we run it, it says you can only make changes to the service and that they will only be applied when you restart the service. Okay, so what we do a restart of nav server instance, and this time we again say BC210. This will restart my service, which is mapped to this uh, server instance, which is written here. Right now, it's trying to restart the service. Once the service gets restart, this property should change to web, and we should have a look once it is changed, once it is restarted. And if I'm not wrong, that should solve the problem that we are facing. Because when the get URL is called, it refers to the service to see, because it is set to default on your get URL method. So it doesn't know what is your default. As I was saying earlier, either you change it here to say that my client type is web, which you can if needed, or keep it default because your default client should be the web client. But then when you say it default, it looks up on the service tier to see what is the default value set. So in the get URL, the default client type now is set to web because I just changed it, and I'm restarting the service. As the service gets restarted, when the get URL function or method will be called from that report, you'll come to the service and say, okay, tell me what is the default client. It'll tell you, okay, the default client is web. And then this web kind of get replaced into your code here and says the default client is web, and that's how it ran it. So we have changed it. Let's go back to our business center. Let's do a refresh and let's try to run our report and see does it work now or not. While this is happening, thank you for the people who commented this. That'll be a great help for the people who didn't knew about this or who never complain about this. So I'm thankful to you guys who raised about this issue. So I search for the report, which is this. I just run it as it is, as I was running it earlier, and this should show me the report. So right now we are on our item number 1310, and if you look at it, and let me zoom this in so that we all can look at it. It tells you that it is pointing to the localhost PC210 company name, page, and everything else with the filters and all. So let's zoom out and let's click on it because I'm sure you might not be able to see it in the recorded version, the URL. When I click on it, it takes me to the next tab, and the item that gets opened is 1320. In the same way, if I look for 80010 item, click on it, it should pop up item number 80010. And in the same way, if it is working here, it'll also work in the item ledger entry page that we have created. So this time it should open the item ledger entry page with the item number filter that we have applied, just this. If you look at the filters, the filter is set to 70201 and it shows you which item ledger entry makes the inventory this. Okay, so what we have learned before we end this, that on-prem only, when you are trying to do or utilize the method get URL, you'll have to make sure that either you set the right client type on your code, or you make sure that on your service tier settings, your default client is set to web, which surprisingly is still set to Windows. Microsoft should change it going forward, that the default client, even for on-prem, is set to web on the service setting.config, custom setting.config. If it is not, you can change it using the PowerShell command of set nav server setting. Thank you for the question. I'll make sure that I hyperlink or add this on the pinned comment of the previous video. If it troubled you, I'm really sorry for it. I didn't thought about the situation for on-prem, but I hope this solves your problem. This is Saurav Dhyani signing out. If you learned something new, do share the video, do subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you next day with the next video. Thank you.